So making this project, this Lincoln Log build with Maya here, I really wanted to just think about a few different things. One is, I guess, the inspiration for this, which was I was in some conversation and I have a vivid memory of being a child and being with Maya at an Al-Anon meeting that my mother was at. And Al-Anon is for people, spouses, partners, family members of alcoholics. And my dad was an alcoholic. And we would go to Al-Anon meetings so that I guess my mother could go through her journey of how to navigate my dad, her husband's experiences in life as an alcoholic, and how to also maybe help my sister and me. And so obviously we were really little at the time. And we would go into, I think I remember being in like a church basement where we would play in this sort of reception area waiting room outside of wherever they were meeting. And I just remember there were Lincoln Logs. And Lincoln Logs were something that over the years I remember playing with a lot, not only in that place, but in other places. And as I had this vivid memory, I was also starting to think, I wonder what I want to do for my Sentient project, because this is my third year in Sentiment and my second project. And the first one I did was a half story photo essay with a piece about the door and what was beyond the door, because the door was such a visual reminder for me, because when Maya died, Darcy and I, we had to go to her place, and there was a lot of, even that moment was traumatic. We had to break down the door to get in to find Maya, and everything went downhill from there. But the door and the doorway just kept remaining this sort of theme or visual in terms of what questions I had about Maya's death, where she was, what would the door open to, more metaphorically. And so the door was what I really focused on. And then I realized like doors and doorways have become a theme in my life in lots of ways. We experienced a lot of homelessness and housing insecurity when we were younger, just a lot of moving from friends and family to friends and family, because all of the situations in our household with my dad being alcoholic and also abusive made things really challenging. And so I remember going in lots of doors. You asked me today what my street address was growing up. I couldn't tell you. I might remember one or two, but I would never be able to get there again. I couldn't tell you what the houses looked like. They're all stitched together, random memories. But I remember the doorways. I remember the front entrances. I remember exiting those places. I remember the trauma of being at a door when Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, when my dad was really drunk and was being abusive, and we had called the MPs, and my mother and my sister were on the outside, and my father and I were on the inside because he was making us choose, and the MPs were helping him make us choose. Also think about the door again in a more spiritual sense. What is the doorway from this life to whatever happens after we die? Also the doorway as a place of homecoming. Maya is wherever she is, and maybe that is home for her, and it's maybe a place of more peace. But I'm also opening the door to my own healing, realizing that for me and my family, that home is not just this physical place we're in, but even more than it ever was, home is really about being together. So that's what I want to talk about, and I'm just going to have a little bit of conversation with you, Maya, while we build this thing. First, let's take all this stuff out. Let's see. I know what I want to build, but we're going to see how it all comes together. I think it's funny. It says it's for ages 3+. So I guess that works for me. Okay. So I've really been missing you. There are days when it's still really hard to process that you're gone. I see a therapist and talk a lot about you and growing up together and all the things we used to get into, all the fun we used to have. It's almost 3 years, but obviously the grief hasn't lessened, but it is starting to change. I think a lot more about what you're doing with Mom and heaven, whatever heaven is. I don't know if it's another time and space dimension. I've gotten very into like metaphysical stuff, like just what's going on in like the universe and how much of that is what we call God and what does all that look like. I'm so curious about those things and spend a lot more of my time like staring off into space, just thinking about the cosmos kind of thing. Yeah, that's what I do. Overall, I'm doing okay. And I've grown a lot over the last several years since you've been gone. And I think you knew what I needed before you left. I think you waited till I was in a good place before you left. And I'm grateful for that. But I also wish you were here to see just how much progress I've made and what I'm doing in my life and what I'm doing with kind of father I've become. Christian and Jordan and to Evan and Alexis. Proud to tell you I'm a much better father than I was. I think I've learned a lot. So that's going well. I know how much you were always in my corner and rooting for me and hoping everything will turn out well. And you always had a way of reminding me that it was going to be fine. I remember you as a protector. You were always protecting me and us and just always looking out for anything and everything. I remember one time I got into a fight with a neighborhood kid and I was really scared. I thought he was going to beat me up. And I just remember you coming down the street and you were like, "You better not touch my brother." And he was scared of you. And it was very clear that the only person allowed to put me in a headlock would be you. So I think that was very clear to him once he got that message. I don't know if you remember, but we used to get these like log cabin magazines. We used to buy magazines of houses. Some of them were log cabins, some of them were just like those magazines that had all the houses. And remember we would fantasize about having a big house with lots of bathrooms. Yeah. We would also, if I remember correctly, we would remember that we would also go look at houses with mom, even houses that we really couldn't afford. And so I just remember that in that scenario, mom used to go to that house at least once or twice and pray for it. And I never fully knew what I thought about that, but I know that that was mom's way of things. And she believed it, she believed. And so I think it really brings to life this idea of hope and believing things and not necessarily thinking that things can't happen for us or come our way. I think that's something we probably learned from her, even if we pray for different things. I think we are nearing the end here of our little humble abode. I just want you to feel welcome home because I think this is our little house that we built together here this afternoon, very much like we would have done when we were kids. And I hope you love it. You see this as a little place for you, a place for us. And so here's the house we built, Maya. A nice little doorway. Look, look at you. Look at you inside the house. That's cool. I didn't even expect that. But yeah, here we are. And it's a nice little place that we can see as ours. And I get it. Maybe that's not realistic in real life, but I really do believe it in the kind of eternal and divine sense, whatever we are when we leave this place. I think there's a place we can go and be together. So I'm grateful for that. Even if that's just in my prayer and my meditation, it's a place I can go to be with you. Remember the day we had to find you and we had to come to your apartment and we had to break down the door. And when we break down the door, found you there. You weren't smiling like you are now, so maybe this is a better way to remember you through this doorway. Smiling, happy wherever you are. happily ever after. Yeah, that's where you are now.